So yeah, purpose of this session is primarily for information. A lot of people have heard of Andy's Man Club these days, which is great. Not everybody knows the story behind it, what we do, etc. like that. So we're going to cover all that stuff for you today. I will say before I get going, there's going to be some sensitive content in this too. So if anybody does need to just step away for a minute or whatever, absolutely fine, no problem with that. Because we are kind of going to get straight into it, to be honest. A little bit of history for you. Back in 2016, there was a young man from Halifax called Andrew Roberts. Went through a bit of a challenging time in his life. We refer to that as going through a storm at Andy's Man Club, and you will pick up all our graphics of these moody skies and what have you. Unfortunately for Andy, his storm got to the point where it got the better of him, and he did end up taking his own life. Now, I never met Andy. And to be honest, I don't really know that much about him other than little snippets I've picked up over the years. So to get this going, we do have a little short video for you from somebody that very much did know Andy. This is his mum, Elaine.
He were a cheeky chappy, typical lad's lad, tough as nails, but I think probably had a soft centre. Andrew died early hours of the Tuesday, 5th of April, and the weekend prior to that he'd had an enormous falling out with his partner. And I just think he got himself into a really dark place that he couldn't get out of. And that's the sad thing. We just think if he talked to anybody, to have snapped him out of it, told him what he were thinking were rubbish, he would still have been here today.
Now, unfortunately, what happened with Andy is very much not an isolated case. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under 54. Now, when you think about things like illnesses, diseases, traffic accidents, workplace accidents, none of that lot comes anywhere near close, to be honest with you, to being a bigger risk to a man in the age group than potentially what he's dealing with up here. In the UK, we do lose very nearly 5,000 men every year to suicide. Now, that's quite a horrendous figure. And when you break it down a little bit, it don't get any better either. Because that works out to be 12 men every day. That's one man every 2 hours. Now, I don't know what sort of day you all put in, but I think it's fairly safe to say that the average working day for the UK is an 8-hour shift. So between the most people starting work in the morning and going home in an afternoon, that's potentially another 4 guys that we've lost. It really makes you think that, doesn't it? And it is widely regarded that for every suicide that happens, up to 135 other people will be affected by that. Now, kind of obvious one, you've got your emergency services. They've got to go out and deal with this sort of stuff. But you've got the person's family, their friend circle, maybe even work colleagues. You times that 135 by 5,000. That's a lot of people. So after what happened with Andy, his family wanted to try and do something. They wanted to try and make a difference. His brother-in-law Luke came up with this idea for a coffee club, just a space where guys could get together and have a bit of a natter. He and Elaine discussed it, went back and forth a little bit, and eventually settled on the name Andy's Man Club. Luke then put a post out on his personal Facebook just to try and gather interest. Due to the response he got to that post, our first meeting was held the very next Monday. We did get 9 guys through the door. And then shortly after that first week, Luke's really good at these ideas. And he come up with this, obviously seen this symbol, this gesture somewhere. And that generally is accepted as originated from the world of diving. And it is internationally recognised as a symbol for OK. So Luke kind of ran with that, expanded on it, came up with this hashtag It's OK to Talk. Now, I do always warn people at this stage that we are rather fond of a hashtag at Andy's Man Club. There are going to be a few more of those pop up as well, so don't be too surprised when they do. Luke once again took to his social media. He put another post out with this very photo on it, and to be honest, kind of fell a little bit flat with this one. Didn't really do much of anything. Now, we never really worked out if it's because it had his mug plastered all over it, but we gloss over that. I will also mention, I'll come back to it a couple of times, about this thing that I refer to as stubborn man mode. Now, fortunately for us, Luke was stubborn enough to realise that he was onto something with this. So he reached out to his family, friends, contacts and what have you, and said, look, please do me a favour and give this a push. They did do that. It did then start to pick up momentum, and it has since been recognised as one of the biggest mental health campaigns on the planet, with well over 100 million people taking part, including Mr. Ricky Gervais. Now, he had no links, no ties to us whatsoever. He saw somebody's tweet of all things. Now, we are very well aware that that particular app's changed its name, but nobody's yet come up with a better word to tweet than tweet, so we're sticking with it. He retweeted that to his followers for us, which actually did us big favours. What a lot of people don't know is that some random guy actually saw this. He looked into it and thought it looked like a good idea. He then got in touch with us and actually travelled to our offices in Halifax, and he was largely responsible for getting those groups open north of the border up in Scotland, all off the back of one tweet. We've also got these gents on board. Now, you may or may not recognise them, but there's a couple of boxers there, rugby player. Fairly safe to say, I think they all got the same sort of reputation as being that tough man, hard guy, or whatever you want to term it. These guys are all fully aware of the importance of talking about and looking after your mental health as well as your physical health. And if guys like this can talk about that sort of stuff, well, surely we all can, right? So that's a little bit of the backstory for you, some of the history. Let's get into what we actually do. There are no bookings for any of our groups. None of the guys need to make an appointment. There are also no charges. Once the guys get there, everything is free. There is free tea, free coffee, free biscuits provided at all the groups. Not going to make any claims as to how good or bad those biscuits might be, but they'll get biscuits. No referrals are necessary. Now, all that means is a guy over 18 doesn't need somebody to tell him to come along to a group. He can make that decision for himself and just turn up. And then, kind of more important than any of that, there are no waiting lists for our groups either. We do fully understand that other services might have limitations to work with. They are working within constraints, but we don't. If we fill a group, we open a new one, simple as, and therefore there are no waiting lists for any of our groups. We are open to any man over 18 wanting to talk to other like-minded men. Now, all our groups are run by volunteers. We call those guys facilitators. They are all very much members of that group still. And they've all started their journey with us as being a brand new guy through the door one night, got into a little bit of a better place, easy for me to say, and then got to a point where they are wanting to help out and give a little bit back. So everybody in our groups is there for the same reason. It's just blokes having a chat. We do meet every Monday, except for bank holidays. That is simply because some of our venues don't open and we don't have access. And we try and run all our groups the same as far as possible. Big part of that is that the guys know when we're actually going to be open. So it's a one in, all in. Most of the groups will open about 6:30, just so the guys can get in, grab the brews, get settled. 7 o'clock then is when we aim to start the session, and we do try our best to be finished for 9. So what is it that we actually do? Like I said at the very beginning, this is primarily an information session. And the way that I see it is this is the most important bit of information you're getting, because this is the bit that might actually stop a guy coming along to a group. He doesn't know what he's walking into, right? Doesn't know what to expect. So when the guys turn up at any of our groups, first person they're going to meet, it should be one of the facilitators. It should be wearing our merch of some description. He's outside, he's there as a greeter. He's there to welcome the guys in. Now, that's especially important when it's a new guy that's come along for his first time. You know, we don't have to be depressed or suicidal to come along to a group, but a lot of the guys will come to us when they are, I think it's fairly safe to say, at a low point in their life. You know, they might be going through a challenge, might have already been to talk to the doctor about it, could well be on a waiting list for other services. Now, that greeter has experienced being the new guy. He knows how tricky a thing it can be to do. So he's going to keep a lookout for this chap. Going to go up and introduce himself, show him into the building, get him a brew, and just try and make sure that he's as comfortable as he can be in that sort of situation. Once everybody's in then, let's say 7 o'clock comes around. If the venue allows, we generally start off in one big group. We have a little intro we go through each week, a couple of rules to go over, and then we'd probably split them off into smaller groups. Our main session is questions and answers, and we find ideally 10, 12 guys per group gives everybody enough time to get through those questions. So we do have a ball that we pass around, which I don't have with me at this moment in time, my bad. The facilitator will take a ball. He's going to ask the first question of the night, which is, how's your week been? It's just a conversation starter. He's going to answer that first, lead by example. So whether it's been good, bad, indifferent, whatever, he's going to give a brief overview and then pass that ball around his group. Everybody gets a turn. We then get to question 2. Give us a positive from your week. The idea of that question is that no matter what you might be going through, there are usually still some highlights to be found within that time period. Being able to recognise them in itself can just give you a little bit of a lift. Question 3, then, the whole point of our groups, anything to get off your chest. That is the guy's opportunity to talk about their stuff, whatever it is they've got going on at the moment. Now, we do aim to get a break in after that question 3. Excuse me. We do aim to get a break in after that question 3 because it can go a little bit deep sometimes, that question. Some quite heavy shares. So that break is intended for a timeout. It's just gather your thoughts, grab another brew, whatever. Little reset before we come in for the last 2 questions. So those first 3, they are the same every week, week in, week out. Creates a bit of a routine, which, is known it can be beneficial for people. Questions 4 and 5 then, well, we do keep them the same across all of our groups. They do actually change every week. And they are structured to be maybe a little bit more positive. So a great example of a question 4 might be something along the lines of, where is your happy place and why? It'd be a 2-parter. Now, for me, I'd answer that way in the woods. Might be a stream flowing through somewhere, maybe a waterfall. Sounds quite pleasant on its own. But then the and why, for me, my hobby is photography. So when I'm in that environment, I'm thinking about the camera I've got in my hand. I'm thinking about what lens have I got on that camera? What settings am I using? What am I trying to show people of that scene through my photography? Now that, it gives me a thought process. In itself, that can shut out some of that day-to-day noise that we all need a little bit of escape from. But there might also be other guys in that group that share a similar hobby. It can create connections and potentially then leading on to friendships. Guys, depending on what hobbies they do, they might meet up away from the groups to share those hobbies. So it becomes, there's potential there to become quite a social thing as well, especially in this day and age where a lot of people do work from home and we're all sat behind our computers all day. We don't necessarily get that human interaction. So that can be a really positive side of that. Question 5 then, to finish on, would be a quick fire. And we do have a chat function on this, so I can run a couple of examples by you if you've got access to your chats. We'll keep them as 1-word answers, so we're not going to test you too much. Apologies if you can hear the row in the background. It's my dog that's upstairs. I think we've got a visitor at the neighbours at the back. So yeah, question 5, quick fire to finish on. Now this first one is quite specific, and a few of us with mugs in our hands, so quite appropriate. When you're making a cup of tea, you put your milk in before or after the hot water? Go. After. There we go, after. To be fair, that's the expected answer, because it's the right answer, isn't it? Why you do anything else? There's some strange folk out there. Fortunately, we don't judge at Andy's Man Club either, so, everyone's a winner. Now, we are a bit of a smaller group, so this next one, we'll see how we get on. The next one is intended to get a bit more division, and it's a yes or no, so again, we're keeping it simple. Does pineapple belong on pizza? No, in capitals. We've gone with capitals. Absolutely. So we managed to get a split. 4 answers. We've got 50% either way, and then a rather ambiguous why not? But hey ho. But that type of question, it's a bit of a nothing question, isn't it? Don't really mean much of anything, but would usually maybe generate a bit of a laugh, which seems a bit weird, but it is kind of the point. Because if we finished our session on that question 3, when everybody's talking about the troubles and maybe a little bit down, well, that baggage can weigh quite heavy. And what we don't want is guys carrying that around with them from week to week. Whereas if we can end on that high, especially when it's a new guy that might have come along for his first time and he can potentially leave laughing and joking about that dumb question with a bunch of blokes he never met before, that's going to do 2 things for him. Now, first and foremost, there's a really good chance he's going to leave that session feeling just a bit better than he did when he walked in. But it might also be the bit that he takes away with him and thinks, you know what, I actually quite enjoyed that. I'm going to go again next week. And he can come back next week, follow that process and continue his journey. And that is pretty much what to expect from Andy's Man Club. It's just a bunch of guys having a chat and quite often having a bit of a laugh while we're at it. So, I mentioned 2016, we started off with one group in Halifax. As you can see, we have grown ever so slightly since then. And that slide is actually now out of date. I believe this week we had 345 actual open groups. Now, all of that growth has been organic. That one group in Halifax, turned out that we had guys travelling into us. They were coming in from Bradford, from Leeds, from maybe Oldham. They got the benefit out of it. They became facilitators, and then in time, they take us out into their communities where they've been travelling in from. And pretty much every one of those groups that we've opened since has opened in a very similar fashion. It's guys that have come along, got the benefit, and want to give back. And there is the proof in the pudding that it actually works. You know, I mentioned this stubborn bloke thing earlier, and we're kind of back at it already. And it is very much a bloke trait, and I know I'm certainly as much guilty of this as the next man, but we can be very backwards at coming forwards when it comes to talking about our own mental health. Well, look at that number. You put us in the right place, you might just be surprised. And then quite conveniently, given the format of today's meeting, we do operate online groups as well. These are really easy to access. Send an email into our info@andysmanclub.co.uk. They then send a link out every week. You guys can click on that ready for 7 o'clock and they're in. They operate pretty much the same way as the face-to-face groups. Same set of 5 questions every week. Only real difference is if guys are joining online, they've got to start out their own brew. We have not yet figured out how to send a cup of tea over the internet. So that's what we do. What we do is helping guys. How we do that is through the sessions with the questions. The why we do that goes right back to day one. Why we do what we do is to try and stop other families from having to go through what Andy's family went through. Now, speaking of families, we had that slide earlier that mentioned up to 135 other people will be affected. Some of those are going to be the kids. Now, all these kids that you see on this slide are kids of either staff or facilitators at Andy's Man Club. They all either would not have a dad right now or literally wouldn't even exist if it weren't for our groups. The exception to that being the young man there in the denim jacket, Alfie. Alfie was Andy's nephew. We do have another video for you at this stage from Alfie, just explaining the effect, the impact that situation had on him. And he has grown a little bit since that photo.
I'm here today to speak about something that changed my life, my family's life, and the lives of so many others in ways we never expected. When I was just 6 years old, I lost my uncle to suicide. Even now, 9 years later, I still remember the moment I found out. I burst into screams and tears, desperately hoping what I'd been told wasn't true, and that my uncle hadn't died. He wasn't just my uncle, he was my best friend. He was like a big brother to me. Losing someone who meant that much was heartbreaking and confusing. At that age, I couldn't understand how someone so young, only 23, could be gone. Nothing made sense to me. Andy's Man Club means something different to everyone. For some, it's a place that saved a partner's life. For others, it gave them strength to speak up when they felt like they couldn't. For me, it means something deeper personal. It's about losing my uncle. Sadly, he didn't speak up. He didn't feel like he could. And because of that, he's no longer here. That's why Andy's Man Club matters so much to me. Because it's now a place where men can talk without judgment. A place that reminds us it's okay to talk. Recently, I've started seeing just how many lives Andy's Man Club is saving. I'm hoping we get to a point where we don't need it anymore, where men feel able to speak freely, and suicide is no longer something that steals people from us. I want to do my part. I want to be someone who encourages others to talk, to open up, because I don't want anyone else to go through what my family did. I will continue to do everything I can to make a difference. I miss you, Uncle Andrew. Thank you, everyone.
So that was the impact on one young man. What we've got on your screens now for you is some more positive impact statements that we've put together. And I usually use the one top centre there to read out. Monday is always the brightness on my horizon. I choose that one for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, Andy was found on a Tuesday. If he'd had somewhere to go, somebody to talk to the night before, just maybe things would have worked out different for him. But also, and again, we're generalising a little bit, for most people, it's the first day back at work after the weekend. Quite often a little bit frowned upon. I mean, how many times have we all heard somebody say, oh, I hate Mondays? Well, if we can give the guys a little bit of something to look forward to on a Monday, can maybe just offset some of that. And then we're back with the hashtags. I did warn you these were going to pop up, and kind of continuing with the impact theme, because this is my bit. This is where I'm supposed to say, yeah, I am that one man. I went through some stuff, went to Andy's Man Club, they sorted me out, life saw rosy and blah, blah, blah. Well, it doesn't really work like that. We kind of get there in the end. But unlike maybe most of the guys that you'd meet from Andy's Man Club, my story is a little bit different in that I didn't actually go to the group for myself. When I first went along, it was to take somebody else. Now, that somebody else was my son. He was 21 years old at the time, and he had made an attempt on his own life. That was a huge wake-up call for us. We did have to actually drop him off at a secure hospital back then too, which, believe me, was not a pleasant experience for a parent. It was very much needed. And I kind of went into dad mode. Right, it's my son. He needs help. What can I do? So I took to the internet and started searching. Now, the good news at this point is there is a lot of help out there, should people look for it, and know where to look is half the battle sometimes. We very often recommend a free app called the Hub of Hope, which is a national directory of all sorts of help services and some amazing people out there. And it is searchable on a local level, and they have drop-down menus for what help you're looking for as well. And of course, most people will have heard of things like Samaritans, Papyrus, Andy's Man Club, Candlelighters. There's all sorts of stuff out there. And to be honest, I had heard of Andy's Man Club by that point, because I used to work in Halifax, and they were doing quite well on social media by that point. So I looked into them a little bit more. They seemed to be doing good things. I had a conversation with my son about it. And yeah, no prizes for guessing. We're back at stubborn man mode, because he flat out refused. He would not entertain it whatsoever. I had to take a little bit of a step back, lick my wounds, so to speak. I had to then very carefully consider my choice of words. And I had to pick my moment where I thought he might be a bit more approachable to having that conversation again. Well, it took me, what at the time was a very long 8 months before I managed to get him onto a group. That was January of 2018. I'm not going to stretch things too much and say that he actually agreed, but we can run with he relented. I got him into my car. We drove over to Halifax, pulled in the car park of the Shea Stadium over there, where group still is to this day. Saw some of the guys start to get outside. To be honest, bricked it a little bit. But we parked up, got out, walked over, met their greeter. We got shown in and got a brew and what have you. Got sat in a circle, and some dude picks a ball up and started asking questions. At that point, I think my anxiety was more through the roof than my son's, because I knew full well he was going to hate this thing. And I wasn't wrong, because he kind of did. But that ball came to him, he did answer the questions, and he did get involved. When we're talking about things like Andy's Man Club, like Samaritans, like counselling, the way I look at them all is they are tools. They are tools trying to do a job. Andy's Man Club happened to be the right tool for the right job, for the right person, and at the right time. It all came together and it worked. Simple as. He would tell you himself that literally saved his life. So I took him out next week, and every week for about 4 months or so. And it got him through that period of his life. Up until 1 week, and he decided he didn't want to go. Now, I still did. I was hopeful of him coming back again at that point, and I went to maintain the contact as much as anything. And after a couple of weeks of that, I was like, yeah, he ain't coming back anymore, is he? So why am I still here? Because I don't come to this thing for me, I come for him. But by that point, I had actually started to make some friends with some of the guys at Halifax group. And most of those guys I'm still mates with to this day. 8 years on. So it definitely does something. But then I also started to get a little bit of feedback that some of the things that I was talking about and sharing was actually beneficial to other guys in the group. Seemed a bit strange, but fair enough. And then I got invited to join the facilitator team. I'd absolutely no idea why back then, but that was quite a personal boost for me as well. I thought, yeah, we'll have some of that. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Now, it's not a quick fix in this Andy's Man Club. It is a process. And I, again, certainly do include myself when I talk about this stubborn man mode. I'm sure my missus will be more than happy to confirm that one, but we'll gloss over that as well. But what that process did do for me was allow me to recognise that, you know what, I was going through some stuff. 2017, that year before we joined, right at the very beginning of the year, my mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That in itself had been a 2-year back and forth with various medical services and quite a stressful experience in its own right. My son then made his attempt in the February, and there are literally no words to describe that. At the end of May, quite suddenly and unexpected, I also lost my dad. My mum was in no condition by that stage to do anything about it, and at the time I was the oldest of 3 brothers, so it all kind of fell on my shoulders to look after things, make necessary arrangements. September rolls around, the company I'd worked for over 23 years shut down. So I also found myself unemployed. I still had bills to pay and mouths to feed. And yet, through all of that, my life pretty much revolved around my son. The rest of it kind of came and went. We certainly had more than one occasion throughout that period where me and my wife used to have to take it in shifts to sit up around the clock to make sure that my son couldn't do something that was undoable. And what it turned out that my actual thing was, well, I was carrying around this big old bag of guilt on my back, wasn't I? Like some sort of unwanted Santa's sack. It's my son, I'm his dad, I should be able to fix him, right? I am very fortunate that I've been able to have many conversations with him in the years since, and spoke to a lot of other guys on my travels or at groups about this thing that we at Andy's Man Club refer to as putting on your mask. And it is very much a blokey trait. We go through stuff, we face challenges in life, and what do? We get our heads down. We put our mask on, we get out there, we crack on with it, and we man up, right? How many times have we all heard that particular saying? But having those conversations, speaking to all these different guys, and especially my son, did allow me to begin to learn. And through learning comes understanding. And eventually, stubborn, remember, took a while, but eventually I was able to learn that, you know what, that wasn't my fault. And eventually kick that guilt to the curb where it belongs. Now, I did end up actually taking over running of the Halifax group for a couple of years. That in itself continued up until 2023, where I was very fortunate to become a member of staff, an employee of Andy's Man Club. I've gone from running the one group to overseeing several around the area, making sure those guys are taken care of and getting everything they need. I also spend quite a bit of my time, whether it be out and about on the road or online, talking to people just like yourselves about what it is that we do and how we do it. And just maybe somewhere along the way, we might actually find that one man while we're at it. So that's a little bit about my story. We do have another video for you at this stage with a couple of other guys just sharing a little bit about their experiences with Andy's Man Club.
Worries and anxieties are a big part of my life. Started about 10 years ago. I didn't want to live anymore. I thought the world would be better off without me. I thought that maybe if I was to take my own life, I could be with my child. But I was very suicidal at the time.
As a child, it was getting bullied and not being able to say how I felt to people. To talk about the problems I went through as a child and everything that happened, I didn't want to.
My worries and anxieties started around the passing of my father in 2013. It affected me in my day-to-day life, it affected my job, it affected relationships. I didn't talk to my friends or family about my problems that were going on.
So the easiest thing for me was to not be here. It was a Sunday night, I think it was, and I knew I didn't want to be here, and I was planning that night to do something.
Thoughts going through my mind were I would be judged by people, you know, real bad thoughts about, you know, getting out of this life.
My worries and anxieties probably started a long time ago, but the most recent was last year. My cousin committed suicide. It was very hard to discuss my problems at that moment in time, as I couldn't even string a sentence together.
I felt very alone. I had a lot of people around me. I know a lot of people cared, but just something instinctively in me just wouldn't open up.
I never spoke about it with anyone. The problems have kept me in all my life.
There's a stigma attached to around how a man should appear and what he should say. There's an ideal view of a man, and I think people need to break the cycle of that and just not conform to that.
I know a lot of men that have struggled generally, especially in the UK. I think not enough men talk about the problems.
The first step towards helping myself was joining Andy's Man Club.
The only time I first spoke about my problems was when I first went to Andy's Man Club.
I first sought help through Andy's Man Club.
It's saved my life, really.
My name's Luke Campbell and I'm the founder of Andy's Man Club. I believe male mental health in our country has for a long time now been stigmatised, and I always put out 3 stigmas: weakness, burden and embarrassment, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people don't want to speak. They feel weak to speak, they feel like they'll burden others, and with the lad culture we have with banter, they feel like they're embarrassed to give any vulnerability away. To any man out there watching this, it's not weak to talk, it's not weak to ask for help.
Steps that I've taken to resolve my issues. I've started talking a lot more to people. The importance of talking about how you feel is phenomenal. Talking's really opened me up to people, my family, my friends. It's turned my life around. I'm happier than I have been in my entire life.
No matter what, I talk about everything now. I won't keep anything in at all.
If I were going to give any advice, it's talk to whether it be your loved ones, professionals, your friends, and if you don't have any friends, reach out. You know, if you are willing to reach out, people are willing to help.
Getting guys in a room and opening up and giving people hope, giving people a lifeline, that's what Andy's Man Club's all about. My advice to any man out there is that you will get through this. At times you may think that there is no other way out, that relationship breakdown, that debt you're in, or whatever issues you're struggling with, that you can't get through that, but trust me, you can. I've dealt with enough people to know now that that cloud will pass. That roller coaster you're on where it just seems like you're going down, down, down will take a turn and you'll get back up. You just got to look up and know that the brighter times are coming, and I guarantee, reach out, it's okay to talk.
So the main thing we do, the main part of our operation, if you will, is the Monday night groups. But aside from that, we also put a lot of time, energy, effort into awareness. What's on your screen now is some of the more eye-catching stuff that goes off around the country. Things like the train wraps and the various trucking companies that get on board. If anybody's been in a train station at all of late, chances are you might have seen some of the digital advertising that points people in our direction. And that stuff's all great, absolutely brilliant. But it can boil down to the basics of giving somebody one of our business cards. We can send these out. If anybody would like one, please drop an email into our info@andysmanclub.co.uk and we'll get you some in the post. The idea of the business cards is a nice portable point of contact. If anybody ever finds yourself having a conversation with a guy or about a guy that might be going through a little bit of something and could use some support, give him one of our cards. He can look us up and see where his nearest group is. And all our groups are listed on our website, www.andysmanclub.co.uk, and there is a search function on there as well. So no matter where in the UK this guy might happen to be, he can put his location into that and it will direct him either to his nearest face-to-face or to the online. And within that, we've developed some really good relationships within the world of sport over the years as well. And there are now quite a few of our groups that are held in a variety of sporting facilities, whether it be football, rugby, golf, cricket clubs and what have you. And the vast majority of those actually donate their space and time to us for free, so we can run our groups at their venues. But it is also still, especially when you're talking about team sports, that very much male-dominated environment. You know, you've got your players, your backroom staff, people that go to games week in, week out. At the end of the day, it's just blokes, isn't it? It's exactly who we are trying to reach out to and connect with. And then we even make the odd appearance on TV. Now, we do have, as well as the cards, we give away thousands and thousands of wristbands on a, well, sometimes weekly basis, to be honest with you. And one of those, simple little rubber ring. One of our volunteers was at a music festival a couple of years back, and he were handing out wristbands. And a lady happened to walk past him. He offered her a wristband. She took it, went away, looked into his. It turned out she was part of the production team working behind the scenes on Emmerdale. They then got in touch with us and we collaborated back and forth a little bit on this storyline that they put out that ran for probably the best part of 18 months, which again got us some really great traction. And all that come from a little thing like a wristband. And then we're going to get a little bit weird for a men's mental health charity. The Monday night groups are for men only. When it comes to all the other stuff, all the awareness, all the events, our social media content, the likes, comments, shares and things that we get on there, a big part of that support right from the very off has come from women. Now, a lot of that may well be because we have helped their man. They're very grateful, want to give a little bit back. A lot of it might well be because they know of a guy they feel would benefit from what we've got to offer. They're very keen to promote us in his direction. Whatever the reasons, we would not be a fraction of what we are today without that support. This is our little shout out, our little way of thanks, just to let people know that stuff does go on and is very, very much appreciated. So while we're on a little bit of an up, we've got some more positive statements we've put together. I'm going to read two of these out for you. I'm going top centre again. Fife dad Kenny turned his life around after depression and alcohol left him at rock bottom. The one directly under that, a man says his life was saved after he did the hardest thing he'd ever done. That was admitting to himself that he was struggling a bit. That was then getting himself along to one of our groups and walking in through those doors. Now, both of those guys, Kenny and Ant, are now actually colleagues of mine. And all our front-facing male staff have got a similar story. We've all started out as a group user, become facilitators. Many of us have gone on to then run groups before becoming employees of the charity. So it definitely works. We've also been very fortunate to pick up a couple of awards over the years. Queen's Award for Voluntary Service there, Yorkshire Choice Award. That video you saw a moment ago of young Alfie, we actually filmed at Yorkshire Choice Award last year. These are absolutely fantastic. They really are. They are absolutely not what we are in this for. Everything we do, our day-to-day, bread and butter, whatever you want to call it, is all about, hashtags back again, finding that one man, getting him in through our door, seeing him leaving a better place than what he walked in. So I mentioned earlier about this challenging times being referred to as going through a storm. One of the ways that that type of stuff can affect people is it isolates. It makes you feel like you're on your own. And then we had a slide a bit since where we showed our attendance figures. 6,700 men is our current sort of average. The entire reason that we post those numbers on a weekly basis is to prove to guys out there that, mate, you are not alone in this. Life can be tough sometimes. You know, we all need something to help us get through those tough times, to get through those storms. Now, the thing to remember is when you may be facing challenges, when you are going through a storm, it will pass. Sometimes all we can actually do is allow it time, but in time, it will pass. And then last, but by no means least, we've got one final hashtag to hit you with. We very often get people asking us, is there any way we can get involved? What can we do to help? And most of those people, to be fair, are never going to come to a group for whatever reasons. That's not a problem, but they are supportive. They want to help out. So ever the ideas, man, Luke came up with hashtag Mission Possible. And the idea for that is for people to do whatever their possible is to let somebody know about us. Maybe put yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. And a lot of stuff that goes on, a lot of the event side certainly is that physical aspect of things. You know, the things like the Great North Run. Last year we had 500 people running that for us, which was amazing. And we've already surpassed that in booking for this year's. We're actually in London Marathon this year as well, which is a new first for us. And a lot of that stuff, to be fair, like I say, is that physical aspect. And not everybody can do that. I certainly can't. I have the needs of a 90-year-old. Trust me, I crack when I get out of bed in the morning. So this Mission Possible, there's all sorts of stuff going on, whether it be people having coffee mornings or bake sales or whatever. There is a QR code on your screen there if anyone wants to scan it with your phone and just have a nosy at our events side of stuff. But like I say, it could even boil down to the basics of giving somebody one of our business cards. Because there is a chance that might come around with a little bit of a awkward conversation. That might be right out of your comfort zone. It doesn't make it any less important. It could be wearing one of our wristbands, because people do spot marking about. And again, they do ask the question. It can lead on to a further conversation. But at that point, I'm sure you're all glad to hear. That is pretty much my lot. Hope we've been informative.